Hello and welcome back to Puffin HQ. Today I want to talk about how to get good audio for YouTube without spending a lot of money. The basic principle is to use what you've got with minimal additional investment. It's based on the principles of guerrilla audio. And when I say guerrilla, I don't mean like gorilla, I mean more like gorilla. Anyway, there's a lot of really useful information in this book which helped inspire me to figure out how to get the best out of the equipment that I've already got. So the first thing to consider is what microphone you're going to use to capture your audio. The simplest thing to do is just let the camera to do it for you, but cameras tend not to have the best preamps built in, so you might find the audio is not good enough for what you want. What I'll do now is I'll switch to the audio that I recorded using my DSLR. So what you can do is you can listen to that as a reference and compare it to what you were hearing before, which is my traditional YouTube setup, which is a combination of a lav mic, which I have pinned to my shirt, and also a large diaphragm condenser, which I'm using as a kind of near-field room mic. What I will say is any audio clips that I play you now where I deviate from my normal audio, everything's going to have the same processing on it. And I can't tell you exactly what that processing is because I won't know until I listen back and assess, for example, how bad the rain noise in this horrible tin-roofed room is. But it's most likely going to be a combination of compression, noise reduction and possibly some expansion. Isn't that right, future Chris?
Actually, I only put noise attenuation on these files, the reason being because the rain noise that you can probably hear in the background is very loud. If I put compression on it, it would tend to bring that lower level background noise up to a higher level, so it would actually make the noise sound worse. So in this case, we've gone for a minimalist approach, which is just noise attenuation.
Thanks, me. So what happens if you don't want to use the audio on your camera? Well, you can get a separate recording device. This one's very popular, this small handheld zoom unit. I've got mine mounted on a tripod so I can point it at my mouth. And these have built-in twin condensers, so you get a stereo field, and they're excellent for things like recording live bands, as long as you manually set the gain, because the automatic gain tends to create very unrealistic jumps in volume, which doesn't sound good. But other than that, I found these to be excellent. What I can do now is record the audio off this. Now, I would expect this using the built-in microphones to sound a little bit too roomy. It's not really the best use of this, but just as a reference, let's hear what these mics sound like. Okay, so now what you're hearing is the audio from the Zoom, directly from the twin mics that are built into the recorder. And what I've done is I've placed it on the floor directly beneath my large diaphragm condenser that I normally use, but it's pointing up at my mouth to give it the best chance of capturing something decent. So we can take a listen to how that sounds. And if you watch now, you should see that my lips are moving in perfect synchronization with the sound that is issuing from them. That's from a film. If you can name it, you're awesome. Okay, so what if you want to do something that's a bit better than the built-in microphones on the Zoom? My first question would be, what microphones do you already have? Because you might have an option to use what you've already got and make them work for you. If you particularly want to use a lav mic, I bought this very tiny, cute lav mic with its very tiny, cute mini XLR from Thomann, which is a German company that sells a bunch of audio equipment. This is a copy of a branded microphone and it cost me, I think, something like £30. In terms of frequency response, it's excellent. It sounds fabulous. I used this for my last video, my soldering video. The problem with it is it's extremely hissy, so if you're going to go the counterfeit copy route, do some research first and make sure that if you're spending money that you're going to get something you can actually use. For me, I've got a very good isotope denoise algorithm, so I could remove the hiss fairly transparently, but I think it would have been extremely irritating without that because it is a limitation of the microphone. If you are going to use a lav mic like this, it does need phantom power, and there's several ways you can provide it. If you already have radio packs, that's one way because it will just draw the power that it needs from the batteries in the transmitter. It took me a while to figure out how to do it without a radio pack, but what I did in the end was get this adapter, and what this is it's mini XLR at one end and full-size XLR at the other. And what that lets me do is feed the signal from the microphone into a preamp. And This is one of the preamps that I use. It's made by Behringer. A lot of people don't like Behringer, their gear is very cheap. Personally, I've had no problems with it and the sound quality has been really quite good. So what this does is it'll provide power that the microphone needs and it'll bring it up to line level for recording. So let's say you don't want to use a lav mic, you want to use a mic on a stand pointed at you, or you want to use that in addition to the lav mic to give you extra coverage. Well, you have options. Like I said before, take a look at what you've already got, something like SM58 or a copy of an SM58, as long as it sounds reasonably good quality, and you can try and get it as close as you physically can to your mouth so that you're not getting too much room noise or too much background noise. Personally, for this sort of recording, I quite like to use a large diaphragm condenser mounted off camera. The one that I'm holding in my hand, again, it's a bit of Behringer kit, Behringer C1. I tend to use these to record guitar cabs mostly. I find them quite warm and pleasant sounding. I wouldn't use this as a main vocal mic, but in a pinch, it does the job, and actually I think it's pretty good. What I'm using to record now is actually a Sontronics ST-C20. And Sontronics are a British company. They make extremely good microphones and they're extremely well priced for the quality that you get out of them. Again, if you're using a large diaphragm condenser similar to the lav mic, you will need some sort of source of phantom power. So both the SM58 and the Behringer C1 that I mentioned are what we call cardioid pickup patterns. So what that means is, if you were to look from above where the arrow is the sound coming into the front of the microphone, the pickup pattern of the microphone is that rather lovely bottom shape that I've accidentally drawn there. So the microphone's picking up really well from the front, a little bit from the sides, and rejecting from the rear. What that means when you're doing this sort of video where you're producing it yourself, as your head moves around, it's not so critical that the microphone is pointing directly at your face, like it might be if you had a boom up using a shotgun microphone on you. If you were to use something like a shotgun microphone, they tend to have what we call supercardioid pickup pattern, and that's a much narrower pickup from the front. In fact, it looks more like this sort of ace of spades shape that I've attempted to draw here. What that means is as you move your head around and you come on and off the axis of the microphone, the sound quality of your voice, the tonality of your voice is going to change quite a lot, and it's going to sound a little bit odd. So for that reason, unless you have a boom up following you, I would recommend sticking to maybe a cardioid pattern for this sort of infill room work for YouTube. So let's say you've chosen two microphones. You've got a lav mic and you've got some sort of stand-mounted cardioid pattern room mic. If it needs phantom power, you've got it going through a preamp, all ready to go, but how do you actually get it into your Zoom H1? The way I did it was to use a cable which is 2 XLR plugs on one end, female, so that'll go into either the back of a microphone or the preamp out, and then a mini jack, stereo mini jack on the other end. So what that'll do is that'll plug into the line in on the Zoom, and that'll give us one stereo file, but one channel will be your lav mic and the other channel will be your room mic. So what I'll do now is I'm going to switch the microphones that I'm recording from my Tascam onto the Zoom, and then I'll let you hear what that sounds like. So what I've done now is switch to the Zoom recorder. So I'm still using Sontronics ST-C20 and I'm still using a lav mic, but I'm not going to the Tascam. I have had to put together a fairly complex system of preamp cable adapters in order to make this work. And I do find the ST-C20 sounds a bit hissy through this setup, but that should be something I can strip out quite well in post using noise reduction. And now I'm just saying things so that you can hear this for a bit longer. Are you bored of the sound of my voice yet? I am. Let's switch back. So you've got your two microphones recorded as the left and right channel onto one single stereo track. You probably want to separate them out into two separate mono tracks so that you can do further processing on them independently, or at the very least set the levels differently. So how do you do that? The first thing I'm going to do is go into Logic Pro and create a new track. Once I have that track, I can insert the audio that I've just recorded. If we go into the mixer and look at the input settings, we'll see two interlinked circles because it's a single stereo file. If I control click on those circles, then I can select either left or right, so that's one of my two microphone channels. And what will happen then is that particular track in Logic Pro will only play back that side of the stereo recording, and then repeat the process but select off the right channel. Then I'll have the two separate tracks that I can process independently. Okay, so 2 bits of advice: be more guerrilla and use what you got. I hope that was useful to you. If you did like that, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing to my channel. Help me spread the word.